Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Entrepreneur Encounters. In today's interview, I'm going to talk with Jim Kohlhardt, the founder of Saturn Lounge, a full-service marketing and storytelling company. That's right, storytelling companies. They put, it's going to be fun. I start out by asking Jim how he got into business. Let's hear what he said.
We started as a family pre-press trade shop in 1984. The family business goes back so many years. In fact, Grandpa Ernie had designed the Packer logo back in the 20s. The pre-press business in the mid-90s was sort of dying a slow, painful death because desktop publishing was making it so much more cost-effective to produce catalog and magazine pages and brochures and collateral. So I came on board with my father-in-law at that time, 30 years ago, to help him kind of grow the pre-press offering, diversify that, and then look at other service offerings. And in 2002, commercial photography was transitioning from the darkroom to digital production. And we already understood everything about those digital files. So our master plan was, let's hire some really talented photographers, open Saturn Lounge as a commercial photo studio, and attract clients using that approach. So Saturn Lounge was born as a commercial photo studio, and I took the lead in developing that business. My father-in-law was a pre-press guy and helped me arrive at that conclusion that photography was the route to go. It wasn't long after, later in the 2000s, where we started getting asked to produce video for the web. Video wasn't practical on the web in 2000 per se, from a bandwidth standpoint, but it had become practical by the end of that decade. So we started having clients ask, well, while you're out on the shoot, can you get some video for us? Can you make us a video? So we quickly said yes to that offering, and I was able to recruit a really good friend who was the creative director down at Jockey International in Kenosha to come on board as our creative lead, especially with regard to video. He was producing the national TV spots for Jockey and a ton of their other content, photography, catalogs, things like that. So he came on board almost 17 years ago to spearhead that offering. And then in the mid-2010s, we started to see some key clients bring their video and photo services in-house. And we also were working with a lot of marketing agencies to do either video, photography, retouching, pre-press, that kind of work. Bottom line is, I've always loved marketing, and I thought that it was the perfect time to evolve Saturn Lounge beyond photo and video to the full marketing services offering.
I love Jim's story here. We hear it a lot at MKE Business Coach, and I think a lot of you are going to resonate with it. So raise your hand if you started in business because you saw a need, you didn't think others were meeting it well, and you went ahead and said, I'm diving in. I see your hand. Look, so many of us get our businesses started because we see that need. We have a product or service that can meet that need, and we say, let's go for it. That's exactly where Jim was at. In this case, he's working with the family in a legacy business with some marketing related work. And all of a sudden, people want to start getting still photography they can put up on their websites as the internet evolved to be able to have that. And he founded Saturn Lounge in order to meet that critical need. Pretty soon people are asking for video. Pretty soon it's turning into a whole full service marketing suite because he saw an opportunity that wasn't being taken advantage of. And he saw it early on and decided to get in there. Not only that, he went and recruited people that he knew were going to be amazing at what they already did and had them added to the team. That's really so critical. It's awesome. And it's a story we hear time and time again at MKE Business Coach. Here's one gem I want to highlight. Jim didn't go alone. He's got his father-in-law playing a key part in the business. His father had started the business a long, long time ago. You notice he dropped that little reference to coming up with the Packers logo. I mean, that's kind of cool cred if you're looking around for something. Look, we love to help fill this role for our clients. There are so many opportunities. Here's the challenge. Jim could have gone down any one of a number of trails. Happens to be the ones he went turned out to be incredibly successful for him and helped him build a great business. But the question is, how do you evaluate? That's a spot at MKE Business Coach that we work with a lot of our clients to help them understand what's going to be the best focus based on their goals, their vision, their values, and the alignment that they have currently in the operation. And then to build out a successful plan in order to go get it. If this interests you, please reach out to us at mkebusinesscoach.com, learn more, and book a free consultation with us. I went on to ask Jim how the business has grown over the years. And the moments when he had to decide whether to invest, put extra money in, or hold off. Let's hear what he has to say.
Well, it's been interesting because we've had to make decisions about tools at various junctures. Like early in my career, we uncovered an offering to develop a partnership on the pre-press side with a local, larger web printer. And that printer decided to get into flexography and needed a partner to produce all the files and plates for the flexo presses. So we had to make the call at that time to invest in some pretty expensive flexography plate making equipment and software. But that relationship ran for almost 20 years until that printer sold and the buyer shuttered their operations in Southeast Wisconsin, moved everything out of state. At that point, that business ran its course. But it's been like that with primarily people, but also investments in technology. Like, when's the right time to buy new video cameras, new computers for all the work we do creatively and rendering files? Now we're seeing, for instance, 3D modeling and animation sort of cannibalizing traditional photography. We used to have people daily coming into the studio here in Waukesha with boxes of products to take pictures of. And then we'd set it, light it, compose it, photograph it, clip it, put it on a different background, retouch flaws, deliver it. Got one really perfect view. Well, with 3D technology now, we can create a very photorealistic version of that product in 3D software. We have to have very powerful equipment, computers to power that software and especially render those files. But it's an effective way to get, really in the long run, unlimited views of the product that we're discussing. So, when was the right time for investing in expensive computers and software for 3D? What about the new broadcast video camera? Those are expensive. So, because we do a lot of broadcast TV commercials and we use higher resolution cameras than we do for our web storytelling. But really, I think it's clear it's really more about people in our business than it is about gear. Pretty much anyone can buy the same products and gear that we can: computers, software, cameras. It's all about having the right people that are really creative storytellers and designers and developers that make the business successful.
Folks, like Jim says here, it's really important to be looking ahead of what the market is bringing. I mean, he's talked about going from the pre-internet phase all the way up. Things keep changing as different market opportunities come on. As he bolts on new segments, he's got to look at new technology. And the question is, when do you invest? How much do you invest? And where do you go? Now, we've already talked about people. He mentioned that a little bit in his last segment. He went out and found great people. But what about when we need to make that equipment investment? And how do you evaluate technology? When's it ready? When's it worth investing in? And I don't mean like we need to be fearful and hide from it, like a circle the wagons anti-AI bandwagon. That's not what we're talking about here. But there are changes coming rapidly, no matter what industry you're in. There's always technology coming along. AI is going to be just one piece of it, and you have to be able to figure it out. Some technologies come and go. I'm looking at you, beloved Atari 2600, my very first game system. Rest in peace, Space Invaders, right? There are other technologies that come and they last and they have durability. And then there's other technologies that come quickly and then go just as quickly. And everyone goes, wow, why did they ever buy that? Look, here's the key that we found at MK Business Coach in order to help discern what technology you need to have. You need to go ahead and use it. I don't mean to go out and buy everything. Find some ways to do some demos, get experience, find other people who've already purchased that equipment or that software or used it before. Get as immersed as you can. While it's not always about the sales pitch, a lot of salespeople actually are some of the key informants that you're going to find to learn all the nuances about those particular items that you need to get. Do your homework in depth. Figure out a business case that actually makes sense. It may be shiny, it may be beautiful, and it may make zero financial sense to do. This is the spot where we help people really understand their financials, understand the outcomes. What's the ROI going to be on that investment? How are we going to end up getting productivity for the business? And ultimately, is it essential? Sometimes something doesn't necessarily have a positive ROI. It's just if you are not offering it, now you're being left in the dust. Sometimes technological innovation does that we have to upgrade just to stay on par with our competitors. Have a discussion with us. Let's see if we can help you because these decisions are huge. And a lot of times they're going to cost a lot of money too. I went on to ask Jim to elaborate on some specific challenges he's experienced in the business as it's grown. Let's hear what he has to say.
You know, really, COVID was a challenge for all of us. It was daunting from the standpoint that our collaborative video and photography was no longer a possibility because of COVID and safer at home here in Wisconsin. But fortunately, we had developed enough of our digital offering that we saw a really nice uptick. And we found clients who wanted to reproduce like selling and marketing environments like trade shows electronically. So we had one particular client, the boathouse, that was concerned that boat sales were going to lag when you couldn't go to the boat show. It made all the sense in the world, when COVID hit, right? So we created a whole 3D boat show experience. We had a venue and we had 3D models of all the boats prepared. And we had a Zoom component so that if you were interested, you could engage one of their salespeople, almost like you were at the boat show. In the end, they sold out. You couldn't find a boat, but it was creative storytelling and marketing slash sales problem solving that we undertook when it was against law for us to go, out on the boat and take video and photo of people enjoying the boat.
Folks, there isn't a business out there that wasn't impacted by COVID-19. And frankly, many of us would like to forget it or quit hearing about it. Here's the thing that happened though. The businesses that were scrappy and willing and able to adjust figured out how to innovate in ways that would have never happened or that would have taken a decade or two rather than pushed on us in 12 to 18 months. And a lot of folks are seeing a huge uptick in business as a result of being prepared. Look, a boat organization has to go from an in-person trade show to figuring out how do they do the same thing they want to virtually. And Jim's company helped them build all that up. They figured out there's a problem here that needs to be solved. If you reduce your business down to what problem is my customer facing that I can solve, that I can address, you're going to be able to overcome some of these significant hurdles and challenges. And I want to encourage you, although thank the Lord we're not facing another COVID issue, there are issues coming down the pipe for your company. And talking to MKA Business Coach can really benefit your business to understand what are the options truly available to you. What problems can you solve? What resources do you have? What opportunities are out there? And to go ahead and start taking some bold swings. That's really what made it work. In Jim's case, the irony was there were market forces that were driving people wanting to do outdoor activity. So those boats sold like hotcakes, along with bikes, boats and bikes. You weren't able to find any of them anywhere because people wanted to be able to get out. But in your situation, what are you going to do to face the market climate that's here today? And how are you going to face those struggles? Reach out to us at MKA Business Coach. We'd love to talk through that strategy with our clients and help them on the path forward. I went on to ask Jim about how his leadership style has evolved as he's continued in his business. Let's listen to his answer.
My wife, Amy, and I, we bought the business from my father-in-law and mother-in-law around 2016. And then Kalmbach Media approached us at the start of 2021 with an interest in buying Saturn Lounge. And I had no interest in selling. I love being the entrepreneur. I love marketing. I love helping clients. But they were really persistent about how interested they were in our business. And Amy and I kind of looked at each other and said, why don't we at least listen to what they offer? Because it's 2021 and everything we're seeing around us is at an all-time high in value. Likely Saturn Lounge is. It's not one of our kids, at times it felt like a family member because of how much we poured into it. But the bottom line, it was an investment, So we signed a letter of intent. They went through the process of assessing the value and made us an offer we couldn't refuse. So in November of 2021, Amy and I sold the business to Kalmbach, and we shocked, I think, everyone in the building. I mean, no one saw it coming. No one. They were just, the employees were shocked that had transpired. So I stayed on running this division for Kalmbach, and Amy pretty much retired after just a short transition period because she handles finance, accounting, HR, compliance, all those elements of the business. And Kalmbach had, whole teams for all those areas. And she didn't want to work really. Part of the carrot for her was I get to retire, spend more time with the kids and eventual grandkids, right? So 2 years after selling the business, Kalmbach approached me and said, we've decided to sell off all our assets. So Saturn Lounge is for sale. And I was ecstatic with that news, Brent, because financially it made sense to sell, but I didn't I didn't handle working for a boss that well, It was very difficult to work for a boss after being my own boss for so many years. So to answer your question, when we decided to buy Saturn Lounge back, we felt it was really important to offer partnership opportunities to some key employees because I think they all would have said, well, you're just going to sell it again, Jim and Amy. You're nearer retirement age than we are. We're not going to stick around to watch you just sell this again in 5 or 10 years. So now we have a leadership team of five. Our creative director, Eric Olson, our VP of marketing, Nathan Jared, our son, Bennett, who's 29 years old and really come into his own, helping run the business. He's a partner. And I dragged Amy back into it, kind of kicking and screaming. She wasn't super ecstatic with the opportunity, but really understood how it could be a blessing for our family. And now our daughter is in the business as well.
So Jim encounters something that was really common. He found an opportunity to be able to sell his business. He wasn't even sure he wanted to. That can happen. You may get people that approach you. Maybe it's a supplier that's interested in your business. Maybe it's a customer that sees it as an opportunity, someone who's been watching from the outside. Opportunities to sell come from a variety of avenues, including amazing business brokers and investment bankers. Those are options as well. In this case, Jim didn't necessarily want to sell, but the financials made it pretty compelling. I'm going to ask you a couple of things. What is your exit strategy? Are you just going to stop working one day and that's it? And essentially the paychecks stop? That's an option that a lot of people do. So here's the follow-up challenge that tends to happen. When your business gets bought out, great, you're going to get a payday. Sometimes there's a residual. It'll be paid out a little bit over time later. Many of the owners have to stay on in some type of management capacity, whether it's actually doing a task for the business or figuring out the transition management, helping the employees get plugged in with the new folks who are coming in there, whatever it is. And what you may discover, something Jim said, he didn't like having a boss again. It's not necessarily didn't like the people, but he spent a lot of time building up his business, not having a boss. And now all of a sudden, he's got a boss over him. So when the opportunity came for him to buy it back, he looked at it as a second opportunity to be able to rebuild the business that he had before and take it along on an amazing legacy. Here's the challenge. If you remember what he said the first time when he sold the business, and this can hold true for a lot of you, when you need to have confidential negotiations, the whole world doesn't know. That includes your employees. So when you make the announcement and say, greetings, employees, welcome to Monday, I'll have you know that by Friday, you're going to have a new boss and I'm going to be out of here sailing in the Caribbean. That's going to take people for a little bit of a shock. Now, obviously, you can craft that message any way you want, but it still may be a shock for people. Small businesses, the employees, particularly the key employees, tend to be bonded to you as the owner. So what are you going to do? How did Jim address this situation? And this isn't a fit for everyone, but I love the avenue that he took here. He decided to have his core strategic team become partial owners in the company. Again, it doesn't necessarily work for everyone, but if you've got the right chemistry, he wanted to avoid the feeling that people will say, hey, at any moment, Jim and Amy may yank the carpet out from under our feet and maybe we need to look for another place. He wanted to feel comfortable. No, you are on the inside as an owner of the company. You would be privileged to understand information like that if it were coming again. And that I value you enough, I'm going to give you an ownership stake in what we're actually building. There are a variety of different ways to address some of these employee challenges, both on the sell side and in this situation of the buy side again, to be able to keep on better talent. There's a lot of ways that can happen. If you want to discuss some of those, do reach out to us at mkebusinesscoach.com and let's see what might work best for your situation so that your key employees, your amazing bench of talent, will stay with your company as you continue to grow and thrive. I went on to ask Jim how he measures success. Let's listen to what he has to say.
We're always focused on ROI, return on investment. So we look at what are we investing in our marketing tools and tactics and what kind of return can we measure? So that, what kind of conversion rate are we getting on the ads? When we look at a budget for marketing, we look at the average lifetime value of a new client, and it's so different for different businesses. We've got clients that can realize hundreds of millions of dollars from a new client. And then we help much smaller clients that don't have nearly that kind of revenue potential. They're capped by the fact they're a solopreneur or individual or their scale in a manufacturing environment. You're limited, right, to a degree to just how much current space you have people and machines. Now you can always invest and expand those areas, but it's like many things, easier said than done in a lot of businesses. So we look at, okay, what's the average lifetime value of a client, a new customer? That informs some possibilities for a marketing investment. But in the end, each client has their own tolerance because we can really only guarantee our best effort until we execute on a plan. We won't know exactly how it's going to turn out. That would be really great for all parties involved, but it's not realistic for our business or any other business out there, right? So we have some clients that will invest 10 to 15% of their revenue in marketing to keep growing. And then we have other clients that hardly invest any of their revenue in marketing, you know? And if they do that, it generally means they're really, really good at what they do. They've got a really long track record and reputation, a strong sales team that's out networking and has relationships with clients and potential clients. And then you don't need maybe to invest as much in marketing because you're just so superior in those other categories.
I love that Jim said this as a marketing person. He mentioned the words ROI, those dreaded letters that sometimes can cause people to quake in fear. Look, I talk about marketing ROI a lot. It's something that we hit our clients with a lot, not just marketing, but on everything. How are you going to evaluate it well? There are a lot of challenges and a lot of difficulties, and many things are a little bit squishy. It is not as simple as I hung this sign outside of my building and all of a sudden my revenue doubled. There's usually multiple things we have going on, and there are multiple factors that bring people in. That said, there are some measurements and metrics that we can track. Sometimes you're going to track ROI in terms of not necessarily the bottom dollar at the end, but some activity that happens that moves your buyer customers from point A to point B, or helps your employees be able to, who weren't able to do something, now they can do something else. The nuances are really in the details, and it's a spot where we dive in at MKE Business Coach to help people see. However, when you are spending money, you should be looking for some type of return. It should not be just an emotional pull on your heart and you're like, yes, absolutely, let's go do that. What's the value to you? Is it something like we talked about earlier that if we don't do, the market is moving ahead of us? Is this an opportunity for us to skip the line and be at the front because we're now market leaders? What are we doing it for? What's the outcome? What do we expect? And then let's set up some measurements. Let's figure out how to track it. Marketing has so many different trigger points that you could actually watch along the way. Even in traditional analog marketing, there are some trigger points that you can watch and see where the trends go and understand some of the paths. If that's a place that we can support you, mkebusinesscoach.com, let us do that. Now, if you are in marketing and that's your core business and core service offering, I want to tell you this. Do the work for your customers up front. You may have to map out the entirety of the customer journey, even if you're only working on one segment of the marketing, but do that work with them. Your customers will love you for it. And they'll actually know not only what they're buying, but the results they're achieving, because they're not actually buying your marketing. They're buying reactions from potential customers and clients. That's what they're actually buying from you. The marketing is what's driving that end result. When you can show them how it all works together, how the work that you're doing with them is going to drive the actions that they want, and then be able to tweak the edges as we start getting some actual data, that is going to set you far apart from everyone else that just says, do this, it's shiny, it's flashy, it's new, it's AI driven, it's colorful, it follows all the latest new techniques. Look, there is data to be generated, there is results to be driven, and there are metrics to track. Do that, and you will absolutely wow your customer. All right, I absolutely love it. Let's hear what Jim has to say about how he funded his business along the way.
We've been blessed to have good banking relationships. So we have always just relied on a primary bank partner for either capital investment loans, or sometimes we would use a line of credit against receivables where we were doing pretty well in terms of cash flow week to week, month to month. But we have a line that allows us to borrow up to X amount of our receivables, and we'll use it for a capital purchase that we plan and expect to be able to pay off faster. But there have certainly been some larger investments where we've capitalized them over a 3 to 5 year period. So you get the benefit of having the new equipment or gear, and you're not having to pay it off all at the time you acquire it.
Okay. There's a whole myriad of ways you can fund your business. Many of you have done a lot of these. I'm just going to recap them quickly. There's bootstrapping, where basically we're digging into our own pockets in order to make it happen. Friends and family. That's just what it sounds like. You're going to your friends and family asking for money. There's using your business to generate additional cash flow, taking the cash flow from your business and using that to reinvest in opportunities. Credit cards, right? That's self-explanatory. Obviously, the caveat is the rate on there is really expensive. However, we've worked with a number of entrepreneurs that was the only source of funding, particularly early on, that they were able to get access to. We got traditional loans through a bank. You also have things like CDFIs, community financial development institutions, that have different ways to do lending. There are SBA guaranteed loans that can give you access in situations where perhaps you wouldn't be able to fund otherwise. And there are lines of credit. Here's one thing. If you don't have a line of credit set up, or you haven't considered increasing your line of credit because you're looking at it and going, I don't think I really need more than X number of dollars. I seem to have been good about that. Let me tell you this. The problem with asking for a line of credit when you need a line of credit is that then it becomes hard to get a line of credit. We oftentimes need a line of credit because we're in a cash crunch. And that's a time when a lender often evaluates and says, I don't really like your cash position right now. I'm not sure I want to extend you credit. When the times are good, I want you reaching out, making relationships and building a line of credit. If you don't have one yet, go out and get one. A line of credit is essentially a credit card at a much better rate, working with the bank that you want to pay back at least every year. It is not meant to be paying for rent and other things, unless, of course, you have a very seasonal business. It's meant to adjust for those seasonalities or perhaps those opportunities. I use a simple example. Think about a farmer. They get buy the fertilizer, the seed. They got to have all their equipment rented. They got to have people hired. When do they get paid? At the end of the season when everything's harvested. Build up all these costs along the way. Everything gets paid back when harvest comes, and ideally there's some surplus left over. Some of us are in seasonal businesses. We have to ramp up for it. When we say inventory, maybe you're taking those opportunities like Jim said. I need that high definition, that broadcast quality camera. And I need that broadcast quality camera in order to be able to do these jobs, to be able to shoot the commercial. Well, guess what? Chances are you're going to have to buy that first, shoot the commercial, and maybe you're on 30 days to pay credit on the back end with your customer. There's a time gap in there. Then instead of relying on credit cards or necessarily having to dig into your cash, your line of credit is an amazing path to go down. So I cannot encourage people enough. If you don't have one, get one set up today. I went on to ask Jim, how is it that he stays sharp in his business? Here's what he said.
I'm willing to talk to anyone. So we learn from others. What are you doing in this space? What tools are you using? What tricks have you worked that have helped you? People do tend to want to help each other. Sometimes for competitive reasons, people will be more closed, but actually there's a lot of people that more so than ever publish stuff right on YouTube about exactly how they accomplish a certain task or do something, So we test any new software, any new tool that we believe looks like it has some promise. A big part of what we do is looking for those ways to do things better or faster,
All right, let me emphasize this again. People want to help you. Yes, of course, there are going to be those people out there who aren't necessarily going to be all that helpful, or frankly, maybe all in it for themselves. Who knows? Leave those people aside. There are folks out there who love to tell their story, who will share their wisdom, their expertise, their guidance. When they get done with a 15, 20-minute call, before they get off that call, they will say, how can I help you? Seek those people out, find those opportunities, also be a giver going back the other way, but find out what worked for them. By the way, if you're looking for feedback on your product or service, don't sit around and guess. Go back and ask previous customers. Ask people who might be in their ideal customer set. Get some feedback and find out what resonates with them. The more you do this, the better your product or service will be. And honestly, you're going to be more comfortable in front of your client and customer. So I want to encourage you to do that. If you need any help with that, again, reach out to us, mkebusinesscoach.com. Be honored to work with you to help build up what are the next steps to be able to be even better and to learn more from your existing customers and from future customers. I asked Jim about his support community. This is a big point of us. We just mentioned there are people who want to help us. We need folks to help us in our business and on the personal side. Let's hear who Jim plugs into.
I'm pretty open about being a devout Christian. I'm a real God and Jesus Christ person. So I read the Bible every day. And if anyone asks me for advice, that's the first advice I give is just read the Bible every day, get through the Bible in a year if you can, and you'll be more connected to your creator and your savior, and you won't need as much support from other flawed human beings that were created, right? So really start there. I love being a part of groups like Vistage, CEO roundtables in the MMAC, the Waukesha County Business Alliance. I've really surrounded myself with a lot of other Christian business owners. I'm involved in C-Suite for Christ and Alpha Group, which are Christian business leadership groups. And you do really learn a lot from peers. So other entrepreneurs running all different types of businesses.
My wife and partner, Kate, and I are also followers of Jesus. We're blessed to have one another to look to and hopefully sharpen one another's faith. But we can't be one another's only support. We have to look for others to help us in our faith journey and in our businesses. They're not mutually exclusive. This is something Kate and I talk a lot about. Where do we want to spend our time, treasure, and talent to build the business that we want? Where are our ideal clients hanging out? Where do we need to focus in order to meet people who understand our struggles? What can I learn from others in order to sharpen my skills, to sharpen my values, to sharpen how I want to do business and how I want people to perceive them? These are some real important questions, things that you can wrestle with yourself. So I want to encourage you. Where are you spending your time? Where are you spending your treasure? Who are you using? Who are you allowing to build into you? And who are you building into in order to develop them? This is going to include other business owners who understand the struggles you encounter every day. What groups are you in that are helping to meet your client acquisition needs? Is this a group of people who understands what you do? I hope it is. Are they going to champion your skills? I sure hope they are. Are they going to understand your skill, trade, and craft and willing to open up their networks to provide you with leads and ongoing support? I want you to find those circles and those spaces and those opportunities that are going to best serve how to fill you out holistically, and those spaces where you have the opportunity to quickly return the favor. I think that's a key aspect that many people miss. Bring your faith in, bring your networks in, bring your communities in, and allow them to build you up, because it actually works all together. It's part of the reason I even founded this podcast. I believe we have to encounter other entrepreneurs in order to be successful. If you're not sure where you want to go and start with this, please reach out to us at mkebusinesscoach.com and let's have a chat. Well, like you, I cannot do this on my own. There are so many people who contribute to be able to bring this amazing product to you. If you like what you hear, I do want to encourage you, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. I'm Brent Halfwasson, owner of MKE Business Coach, and I want to remind you that being a growth company means upgrading your current business. See you next time.